If you're looking for a hero, keep scrolling. I'm the guy your mother warned you about, after she finished crying over what I became. My name is Ethan Vaughn, and this is the story of how I learned that revenge, served ice cold, tastes better than any 5-star meal. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It was a Tuesday night in October when my world ended. Not with a bang, not with tears, but with the sound of champagne glasses clinking and my wife's laughter echoing through the marble halls of her law firm's grand opening party. I should have seen it coming. Clara had been distant for months, working late, taking mysterious phone calls, and treating me like an inconvenient piece of furniture that she'd forgotten to donate to charity. But I was too busy keeping my classic car restoration business afloat to notice that my marriage was sinking faster than the Titanic. The party was everything Clara had dreamed of. Sleek, expensive, and crawling with Lakeview's elite. The kind of people who measured success by the thread count of their suits and the vintage of their wine. I stood in the corner, nursing a whiskey and watching my wife work the room like a politician on election night. "Ethan, darling, come here," Clara called out, her voice carrying that fake sweetness she reserved for public appearances. She was stunning in her black cocktail dress, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. I walked over, straightening my tie. It was the most expensive one I owned, but I still felt like a mechanic playing dress-up at a debutante ball. "Everyone, I want you to meet my husband, Ethan," Clara announced to the small crowd gathered around her. "He's been so supportive of my career." The way she said supportive made it sound like a disease. I forced a smile and shook hands with lawyers whose names I'd forget before morning. That's when Clara reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. "Actually, Ethan, I have something for you," she said, her voice carrying across the room. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Even the waiters paused mid-pour. I took the envelope with hands that somehow remained steady. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by Clara, with little yellow sticky notes marking where I needed to sign. "I thought this would be the perfect place to start our new chapter," Clara continued, raising her champagne glass. "I want to thank Ethan for helping me get this far. He's been my training wheels husband, and now it's time for me to ride solo." The crowd laughed. Actually laughed. Like my 20-year marriage was a punchline at a comedy club. Standing next to Clara was Justin Blake, her 30-something protégé with his perfectly styled dark hair and suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He was smirking at me like he'd just won the lottery. "Don't take it personally, Ethan," Justin said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You were a good stepping stone." The room erupted in more laughter. I felt every eye on me, waiting to see if I'd break down, make a scene, or beg. Instead, I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I smiled. "Well, Clara," I said, my voice calm and steady, "you always did know how to make an exit." I tucked the envelope under my arm and walked toward the door. Behind me, I could hear Clara telling someone, "He's taking it better than I expected." If she only knew. I made it to my pickup truck before pulling out my phone. 3 taps on my banking app, another 2 on my investment portfolio, 1 final tap to confirm. $20 million. That's how much I'd invested in Clara's law firm over the years. Money from my business, from selling my father's property, from every successful restoration project I'd completed, money that had bought the marble floors she was standing on, the champagne she was drinking, and the success she was celebrating. With a few more taps, I pulled it all out. Every single penny. My phone started buzzing immediately, then it started ringing. By the time I pulled out of the parking lot, I had 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages. I turned off my phone and drove home to my empty house, where I poured myself a real drink and waited for the fireworks to begin. The next morning, my workshop looked like a war zone. News vans lined the street, reporters shoved microphones at anyone who walked by, and my phone had died from the sheer volume of calls and texts. I was under the hood of a 1967 Mustang when Max Russo walked in. Max was my best friend, my boxing coach, and the only person in Lakeview who could make me feel like a kid getting scolded by his father. "Jesus Christ, Ethan," Max said, his gravelly voice echoing through the garage. "You really did it, didn't you?" "Did what?" I asked, not looking up from the engine. "Don't play dumb. You know exactly what you did. Clara's law firm is in chaos. Half her clients are pulling out, her partners are in emergency meetings, and there's a rumor that the bank might call in their loans." I straightened up and wiped my hands on a rag. "Sounds like a rough day for Clara." Max studied my face with the intensity of a detective interrogating a suspect. He was in his 50s, built like a brick wall, with gray hair and scars that told stories he never shared. You want to tell me what really happened last night? He asked. I told him everything. The envelope, the public humiliation, Justin's smirk, the whole degrading spectacle. Max listened without interruption, his face growing darker with each detail. That's cold, even for Clara, he said when I finished. But pulling $20 million out of her business? That's nuclear, Ethan. You know that, right? She wanted me to sign and leave, I said. So I did, but I took my money with me. My phone, now charged, buzzed with a text from my daughter, Sophie. She was 18, a freshman at Northwestern, and had inherited her mother's beauty and sense of entitlement. Dad, what did you do? Mom is freaking out. Everyone's talking about it. This is so embarrassing. I showed the text to Max, who shook his head. Kids always side with the parent who gives them the most money. Sophie's not a kid anymore, I said. She's old enough to see what her mother really is. But I was wrong about that. Absolutely wrong. Sophie showed up at my workshop that afternoon, her designer jeans and cashmere sweater looking out of place among the oil stains and car parts. She was beautiful, like her mother, but where Clara's beauty was sharp and calculating, Sophie's was soft and spoiled. Dad, you have to fix this, she said without preamble. Mom's career is ruined. Do you know how this makes our family look? Our family? I repeated. Sophie, your mother divorced me in front of a room full of strangers. There is no family anymore. You're just bitter because she outgrew you, Sophie snapped. Mom worked hard for everything she has. She deserves better than some mechanic who can't even dress properly for a party. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, mostly because they came from my daughter's mouth but sounded exactly like Clara's voice. Is that what you really think of me? I asked. Sophie's expression softened for just a moment, and I saw a glimpse of the little girl who used to help me work on cars in this very garage. Then the moment passed. I think you're jealous, she said, and I think you're trying to punish Mom for being successful. She left without saying goodbye. That evening, I was closing up the shop when Justin Blake walked in. He'd traded his expensive suit for jeans and a polo shirt, but he still looked like he'd stepped out of a catalog. We need to talk, he said. No, we don't, I replied, not looking up from the paperwork on my desk. Clara's firm is hemorrhaging clients. Her partners are talking about forcing her out. You've destroyed everything she worked for. Good, I said. Justin stepped closer, and I could smell his cologne, something expensive and cloying. You think you're some kind of tough guy because you can fix cars and throw punches at Max's gym? I looked up at him then, really looked. He was handsome in that generic way that appealed to women like Clara. Smooth, polished, and completely artificial. I think I'm a man who got tired of being disrespected, I said. Clara never disrespected you, Justin said. She just outgrew you. It happens. People change, they want different things. You should have seen it coming. How long? I asked. What? How long have you been sleeping with my wife? Justin's smirk faltered for just a second. Does it matter? Humor me. 3 years, he said, and the smirk returned. She came to me, Ethan. She was lonely, married to a man who cared more about old cars than his wife's dreams. 3 years. 3 years of lies, of fake smiles, of Clara coming home late and blaming work. 3 years of me being the fool who believed her. You want to know the funny thing? I said, standing up. I actually loved her. Even when she stopped loving me, even when she started treating me like hired help, I still loved her. That's your problem, Justin said. You loved someone who was never really yours to begin with. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Ethan, Clara wants the house, and the cars, and half your business. She's got a good lawyer. After he left, I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about love and betrayal and the fine line between justice and revenge. Then I started making phone calls. Max's boxing gym was a temple to controlled violence. The walls were lined with photos of fighters, the air thick with sweat and determination, and the sound of gloves hitting heavy bags provided a steady rhythm that matched my heartbeat. I was working the speed bag when Justin walked in. He looked around like he'd stumbled into a foreign country, his nose wrinkling at the smell of honest sweat. Max was training a young kid in the ring, but I could see him watching Justin out of the corner of his eye. Didn't expect to find you here, Justin said, approaching cautiously. Really? Where did you expect to find me? Crying into my beer at some dive bar? Something like that, he admitted. I stopped hitting the bag and turned to face him. What do you want, Justin? Clara sent me. She wants to make a deal. What kind of deal? You put the money back into the firm, she'll give you a clean divorce. No alimony, no fight over assets. You keep your little garage, she keeps everything else. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. That's generous of her. She's being more than fair, considering what you did. What I did? I took my money out of a business. My money, Justin. Every penny of it came from my work, my sweat, my inheritance from my father. Justin shrugged. Doesn't matter where it came from. Clara built something with it. Something important. And now she can build something new, I said. Somewhere else, with someone else's money. You're making a mistake, Justin said. Clara has friends, important friends, people who can make your life very difficult. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. That's when Max approached. He was wearing his usual gym clothes, sweatpants and a tank top that showed off arms like tree trunks. His face was neutral, but I knew that look. It was the same expression he wore right before he knocked someone out. Problem here? Max asked. No problem, Justin said quickly. Just having a conversation with Ethan. Conversation's over, Max said. Unless you want to have it in the ring. Justin looked at the boxing ring like it was a torture device. I don't fight. I can see that, Max said. You look like the type who lets other people do his fighting for him. A small crowd had gathered. Word travels fast in a gym, and everyone could sense the tension. I saw opportunity in their curious faces. Actually, I said, I think Justin here was just about to show us what he's made of. Weren't you, Justin? I don't think that's necessary, Justin said, backing toward the door. Come on, I said, following him. Clara's always talking about how tough you are, how you're everything I'm not. Prove it. This is ridiculous, Justin said, but his voice had lost its confidence. What's ridiculous is you thinking you can walk into my place and threaten me, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. What's ridiculous is you sleeping with another man's wife for 3 years and then having the balls to lecture me about fairness. The crowd murmured. In a place like Max's gym, that kind of behavior was considered lower than dirt. I never threatened you, Justin protested. No? Then what would you call it when you tell me Clara has friends who can make my life difficult? Justin's face was red now. Whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. Fine, he said. You want to do this? Let's do this. Max looked at me with raised eyebrows. I nodded. All right, Max announced to the gym. We got ourselves a little sparring session. Gloves and headgear, 3 rounds, no contact to the head for the amateur. Justin looked like he wanted to run, but with everyone watching, he couldn't back down without looking like a complete coward. He let Max tape his hands and lace up the gloves, his movements awkward and uncertain. I'd been boxing with Max for 15 years. I wasn't good enough to turn professional, but I was good enough to handle a soft lawyer who'd probably never thrown a punch in his life. The bell rang. Justin came at me with wild, looping punches that wouldn't have hurt a child. I slipped them easily, landing light jabs to his body that made him grunt and stumble. The crowd was laughing now, not at me, but at him. Come on, Justin, I said between punches. Show me that killer instinct Clara's always talking about. He tried to rush me, arms flailing. I sidestepped and let him run into the ropes. When he bounced back, I was waiting with a gentle uppercut that lifted him off his feet and deposited him on his backside. The crowd cheered. Max was trying not to smile. Justin was trying not to cry. Had enough? I asked, standing over him. He nodded, unable to speak. Good, I said. Now get out of my gym, and tell Clara that if she wants to negotiate, she can call me herself. But she better bring a better offer than the one you just made. Justin left without another word, his expensive clothes soaked with sweat and his dignity in tatters. The crowd dispersed, slapping me on the back and offering congratulations. Max waited until we were alone before speaking. You know this is just the beginning, he said. I know. Clara's not going to take this lying down. She's going to come at you with everything she's got. Let her come, I said. I'm not the same man she married, and I'm definitely not the man she divorced. That night, I started phase 2 of my plan. I made a list of every client Clara had ever mentioned, every contact in my phone who'd done business with her firm, every person in Lakeview who might be interested in knowing the truth about Clara Vaughn. It was going to be a long night. Clara's law firm occupied the top 3 floors of the newest building in downtown Lakeview, glass and steel reaching toward the sky, a monument to ambition and success. Or at least it had been, until the cracks started showing. I was parked across the street, watching through binoculars as moving trucks loaded boxes from the building. Clara's partners were jumping ship faster than rats fleeing the Titanic. My phone rang. Clara's name appeared on the screen for the first time since the divorce party. Hello, Clara, I answered. You bastard, she hissed. You absolute bastard. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. How's the law business treating you? You know exactly how it's treating me. Margot Sloane is circling like a vulture, trying to steal my remaining clients. Half my staff has quit. The bank is breathing down my neck. Margot Sloane was Clara's biggest rival at the firm, a sharp-tongued woman in her 40s who'd been waiting years for Clara to stumble. Apparently, she didn't need to wait anymore. Sounds like you're having a rough week, I said. This isn't over, Ethan. I'll get every penny back, plus damages. My lawyer says I have grounds for a lawsuit that will destroy you. Your lawyer? I thought you were a lawyer. I can't represent myself in a divorce case, you moron. Right. Well, good luck with that. I'm sure whoever you hire will be very expensive. I hung up and went back to watching the building. Around noon, I saw Justin emerge from the parking garage, walking quickly toward his silver BMW. He looked like a man running from something. I started my truck and followed him. Justin drove to the Lakeview Motor Lodge, a place that rented rooms by the hour and asked no questions. He parked behind the building and hurried to room 237. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. Through the thin walls, I could hear voices. Clara's voice, sharp and angry. Justin's voice, whining and defensive. And a third voice I didn't recognize. Another woman. I pressed my ear to the door. Told you this was a mistake? The unknown woman was saying. Getting involved with a married man is one thing, but destroying his business? That's just cruel. Ethan destroyed his own business when he pulled that money out. Clara snapped. I'm the victim here. Are you? The woman asked. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you humiliated your husband in public and he fought back. Whose side are you on? Clara demanded. I'm on the side of not getting sued into bankruptcy, the woman replied. Do you have any idea what this is doing to our reputation? Our clients are running for the hills. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Our clients are sheep, Clara said. They'll come back when this blows over. Will they? Because Margot Sloane is offering them better rates and promising them a drama-free experience. Something we clearly can't provide. Margot Sloane is a has-been who peaked 20 years ago, Clara snarled. She's jealous of everything I've accomplished. What you've accomplished with your husband's money, Justin added helpfully. Ex-husband, Clara corrected. And that money was community property. I had every right to use it. Did you have the right to humiliate him in public? The unknown woman asked. I had the right to divorce him however I wanted, Clara said. If he couldn't handle it, he should have stayed home. I'd heard enough. I walked back to my truck and drove to the nearest electronics store, where I bought a small digital recorder and a pack of blank CDs. Then I went home and got to work. By evening, I had edited the recording into a tight 5-minute clip that captured the essence of Clara's character. Her callousness, her entitlement, her complete lack of remorse for what she'd done. I made 50 copies. The next morning, I started my delivery route. The first stop was the Lakeview Country Club, where I left copies in the locker rooms and the main lobby. Then I hit the coffee shops, the restaurants, and the boutiques where Clara's social circle liked to gather. By noon, the recording was spreading through Lakeview like wildfire. By evening, it had found its way onto social media. By the next morning, it was the talk of the town. Clara called me at 6 a.m., screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You recorded a private conversation, she shrieked. That's illegal. Actually, it's not, I said calmly. Illinois is a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded, it's perfectly legal. But you weren't part of the conversation. No, but I was on public property outside a motel room with paper-thin walls. If you wanted privacy, you should have chosen a better location. The line went quiet for a long moment. What do you want? Clara finally asked. I want you to understand something, I said. You thought you could humiliate me in public and walk away without consequences. You thought you could take my money, my dignity, and my family, and I'd just accept it like a good little boy. Ethan, I'm not finished. You made a mistake, Clara. You forgot that I'm not just some mechanic you can push around. I'm a man who spent 20 years building something from nothing. I'm a man who knows how to fight when he's cornered. What are you saying? I'm saying this is just the beginning. You wanted a war, sweetheart. Congratulations. You got one? I hung up and went back to work. There was still so much left to do. The Lakeview Charity Gala was the social event of the year, a chance for the town's elite to dress up, drink expensive wine, and pretend they cared about helping the less fortunate. It was held at the Lakeshore Country Club, a sprawling complex overlooking Lake Michigan. I hadn't planned to attend. In fact, I hadn't even been invited. But Margot Sloane had called me that morning with an interesting proposition. I want to hire you to speak at tonight's gala, she said without preamble. Speak about what? About small business, about perseverance. about what it means to build something with your own hands. The theme is local heroes, and I think you'd be perfect. What's the real reason, Margot? She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You're smarter than Clara gave you credit for. The real reason is that I want to watch her face when you walk onto that stage. You know she'll be there? Oh, she'll be there. She bought a table for 10, back when she thought she still had friends to fill it. Last I heard, she'll be sitting alone with Justin. What's in it for you? Clara Vaughn has been a thorn in my side for 15 years, Margot said. She's arrogant, she's ruthless, and she's finally vulnerable. I want to watch her fall. And you want to use me as the push? I want to give you a platform to tell your story. What you do with it is up to you. I thought about it for exactly 10 seconds. What time do you want me there? The country club was decorated like a fairy tale, with twinkling lights and flowing fabrics transforming the ballroom into something magical. Men in tuxedos and women in evening gowns moved through the crowd like dancers in an expensive ballet. I wore my best suit, the one I'd bought for Sophie's high school graduation. It wasn't designer, but it was clean and it fit properly. More importantly, it was mine. Clara was sitting at a table near the back, just as Margot had predicted. She wore a stunning red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, but she looked tired. Older. The stress of the past few weeks had carved lines around her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. Justin sat beside her, fidgeting with his phone and avoiding eye contact with the other guests. They made a pathetic pair, the fallen queen and her court jester, pretending they still belonged in a world that had already moved on without them. I made my way through the crowd, shaking hands and accepting congratulations from people I barely knew. Word of my divorce had spread through Lakeview's social circles like gossip always did, quickly and with embellishments. Ethan Vaughn, you magnificent bastard, said Tom Mitchell, a real estate developer I'd met at previous charity events. I heard what you did to Clara's firm. Brilliant move. I just took my money back, I said. Still, it took balls. Clara Vaughn has been queen bee of this town for too long. About time someone knocked her down a peg. Similar conversations followed as I moved through the room. The consensus was clear. Clara had overplayed her hand, and I had outmaneuvered her. In Lakeview's social hierarchy, that made me the winner by default. Margot found me near the bar. She was a handsome woman in her 40s, with silver hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Ready for your moment in the spotlight? She asked. As ready as I'll ever be. Good. You're on after the auction. I've prepared some remarks about your business, your contributions to the community, that sort of thing, but the microphone will be yours. Any advice? Tell the truth. These people love nothing more than watching the mighty fall, especially when they fall this spectacularly. The auction was a typical charity affair. Overpriced items sold to wealthy people who could afford to overpay for the tax deduction. A weekend in Napa Valley went for $15,000. A signed basketball sold for $8,000. A week at a Lake Geneva mansion fetched $25,000. Finally, Margot took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, our theme tonight is local heroes, people who make our community stronger through their dedication, their hard work, and their integrity. Our final speaker tonight embodies all of these qualities. Please welcome Ethan Vaughn, owner of Vaughn Classic Restorations. The applause was polite but enthusiastic. I walked to the podium, my heart pounding but my hands steady. The spotlight was blinding, but I could see Clara's table in the darkness beyond. Thank you, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. When Margot asked me to speak tonight about local heroes, I wasn't sure I belonged on this stage. After all, I'm just a mechanic who fixes old cars. A few chuckles from the audience. But then I realized that being a hero isn't about what you do for a living. It's about how you treat people. It's about integrity. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. I paused, letting my eyes find Clara's table. She was staring at me with undisguised hatred. Some of you know that I recently went through a divorce. It wasn't pleasant. In fact, it was probably the most humiliating experience of my life. My wife, my ex-wife, decided to end our marriage in the most public way possible, in front of all of you, at her law firm's opening party. The room had gone completely quiet. This wasn't the inspirational speech they'd been expecting. She handed me divorce papers like I was a waiter getting a tip. She called me her training wheels husband and thanked me for helping her get where she was. She laughed about it. You all laughed about it. I could see people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some were looking at Clara's table, others were staring at their plates. But here's what you didn't know. For 20 years, I supported Clara's career. I invested millions of dollars in her law firm. I sacrificed my own dreams to help her achieve hers. I loved her, even when she stopped loving me. My voice was getting stronger now, more confident. And here's what else you didn't know. For the last 3 years, Clara has been having an affair with her associate, Justin Blake. Not just an affair, a relationship. They've been laughing at me behind my back, calling me names, planning my humiliation. Gasps from the audience. I could see people turning to look at Clara and Justin, who had gone pale. So, when Clara handed me those divorce papers, I signed them, just like she wanted. But I also did something else. I took my money back. Every penny I'd invested in her firm. $20 million. The gasps turned to murmurs. $20 million was real money, even in Lakeview. Some people have called that revenge. I call it justice. You see, Clara forgot something important. She forgot that I'm not just some mechanic she could push around. I'm a man who built a business from nothing. I'm a man who knows how to fight when he's cornered. I looked directly at Clara's table now. She was standing, her face red with anger and embarrassment. Justin was trying to pull her back into her seat. Clara wanted me to sign and leave quietly, like a good little boy, but I'm not a good little boy. I'm a man who refuses to be humiliated without consequences. Clara was walking toward the stage now, her heels clicking on the marble floor. The crowd was watching like spectators at a car crash. "You son of a jerk!" she shouted, loud enough for everyone to hear. "How dare you!" That's when Justin tried to rush the stage. I don't know what he was planning. Maybe he thought he could tackle me or grab the microphone or somehow save the situation. But he'd forgotten about the 3-tier wedding cake that was positioned next to the stage for the evening's finale. I stepped aside as Justin charged past me. His momentum carried him directly into the cake, which exploded in a shower of white frosting and strawberries. He went down hard, his tuxedo ruined, his dignity in tatters. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Someone started taking pictures. Within minutes, the images would be all over social media. Clara stood frozen in the middle of the dance floor, her mouth open in shock. Around her, 300 of Lakeview's most influential people were laughing at her boyfriend, her choices, and her spectacular fall from grace. I walked back to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Clara Vaughn and Justin Blake, Lakeview's newest comedy duo." The laughter grew louder. Clara turned and ran from the room, leaving Justin to extract himself from the cake wreckage alone. I left the stage to a standing ovation. Margot was waiting for me at the bottom of the steps, her eyes bright with satisfaction. "That was better than I hoped," she said. "Clara Vaughn will never recover from this." "What about you?" I asked. "What do you get out of it?" Clara's remaining clients, her office space, and the satisfaction of watching my biggest rival destroy herself. She smiled. "I've been planning this for months, Ethan. I just needed the right weapon." "And I was your weapon?" "You were my nuclear bomb. Clara gave you the ammunition when she humiliated you in public. I just gave you the platform to fire it." I looked around the ballroom where people were still talking and laughing about what they'd just witnessed. Clara and Justin were gone, but their humiliation would live forever in the memories and phone videos of everyone who'd been there. "She won't give up," I said. "Clara's not the type to go quietly." "She doesn't have a choice," Margot replied. "After tonight, she's finished in this town. No one will hire her. No one will work with her. No one will even return her phone calls. She'll have to start over somewhere else, and she'll have to do it without your money." As I drove home that night, I thought about justice and revenge and the fine line between them. I thought about love and betrayal and the price of humiliation. Most of all, I thought about the look on Clara's face when Justin hit that cake. For the first time in months, I smiled. The war was over. I had won. But the best part? Clara had defeated herself. All I'd done was give her enough rope to hang herself with, then watched while she tied the noose. She wanted me to sign and leave, so I did. But first, I signed her name at the bottom of a disaster.